Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock Ice Cold Pepsi Cola. That's a sound I love and a taste I live for. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris. Rodney, TiderInsider.com, still pumping out a lot of information, recruiting, game recaps, and otherwise.
And fortunately, it's been a lot of good information, Gary. Winning games, #1 in the country, a lot of big-time recruits coming Alabama's way. It doesn't get much better than that. And, of course, it's all on TiderInsider.com, $48 a year.
Can't beat it. Best value on the internet in terms of Alabama football. Well, for the most part, you know, the Crimson Tide, Rodney, has been really lucky in regards to injuries under Nick Saban. But this year, things have been different. Freshman receiver Chris Black was lost prior to the season, as was junior safety Jerry Williams. Then junior running back Jalston Fowler had his season come to an end with a knee injury in the Western Kentucky game. Now, sophomore receiver DeAndrew White and redshirt freshman running back D. Hart have had season-ending knee injuries. White was hurt in the first quarter of the Ole Miss game, had to be helped off the field and then carted to the locker room. Then in the fourth quarter, Hart went down following an Ole Miss punt and hurt his knee. Now, he was able to jog off the field under his own power, but an MRI on the knee determined that he would require season-ending surgery. It's a second knee injury. Coach Saban spoke to the Birmingham Monday Morning Quarterback Club yesterday, and he told reporters that while this has been an unusually high number of injuries for Alabama, you know what? It creates opportunities for others.
Neither guy even got hit in a game. Neither guy got touched, really. And, you know, there's always going to be injuries in sports. Both of those guys have worked extremely hard, you know, this season, and really both made a really significant contribution to our team, not only in their performance, but in the example they set. And, you know, we're going to miss them. And they're both core special teams guys. And, you know, this is really the most guys that we've lost for the season. I think it's up to 5 now. We lost 2 guys in camp that both would have been in the 2 deep, and now we've lost 3 guys during the season. And, you know, it's going to create opportunity for other players on our team, but more people are going to have to step up and do a good job for us.
All right, let's bring Rodney in to discuss this. You know, we talk a lot about injuries being a part of the game, and we talk about recruiting, and everybody wants to follow in terms of the best players and who's starting. But one of the most important aspects of recruiting is developing depth in your program, and thankfully Alabama has some, and because of these 5 season-ending injuries, they need it.
Yeah, and again, that's part of, as you mentioned, Gary, the great recruiting that Nick Saban and his staff have done through the last 4 or 5 years. And you know, when you lose a guy like D. Hart, somebody like maybe Kenyon Drake gets more of an opportunity. You look at some of the young freshman wide receivers, possibly Cyrus Jones now might develop more of a role on this team in terms of his playing time. You know, he's played some, and obviously Amari Cooper had his coming out party this past weekend. So again, like Nick Saban said, fortunately you have guys available to step up.
You know, going into the season, a lot of fans were talking about, man, how are they going to get all these running backs carries with a redshirt Drake? They've got too many running backs. We see just how quickly you can go from quote-unquote too many to not enough. Fowler and Hart out. Now it's down to 3. Lacey, Yeldon, and Drake. Obviously, Blake Sims could play there. Callaway could play there. But suddenly, there's not a lot of running backs. And
you know, Eddie Lacy's had some issues.
Yeah.
And again, so again, it's like coaches always say, you never have enough.
That's right. You sure don't. Good news is all 3 of those guys we mentioned, Lacey, Yeldon, and Drake, are extremely talented, as is Brent Callaway, as is Blake Sims, who's playing quarterback, but also can play running back as well. All right, let's move on from the injury situation to the last ball game of the year, the last ball game before the bye week. Alabama moves to 5-0. Final score, Crimson Tide 33, Ole Miss 14. But this was a game that Alabama led 27-7 at the half. Despite the fact that it didn't seem like they were up by 20 points, they were still only 6 points in the second half. Actually got outscored 7-6. First time this season Alabama trailed. They trailed 7-6 until Kristen Jones took a kickoff back. You know, only 305 yards of total offense. The good news is they only gave up 218, but they were challenged in this game. Ole Miss came to play, and physically, the Rebels seemed to hold up very well against Alabama. I'm not saying there are questions about this Alabama team. Clearly, they're number 1, but the thought that you're just going to blow everybody out by 50 every week, I think we saw that that's not going to be the case.
Well, first of all, I think, Gary, it is safe to say there are still questions about this team. It has a lot of room to improve and develop. And, you look at this game, remember last week, I picked it 38-14 was the score I predicted. Said I was being a little bit conservative, but I felt like it could be this. I don't want to say necessarily a lackadaisical effort, but it certainly was not Alabama's best effort by any stretch of the imagination. But I'll say this. LSU came in, or rather Ole Miss came in leading the SEC 259 yards a game rushing. Alabama held them to 80 yards. Alabama did a great job defensively, in my opinion, on this offense, which is pretty diverse.
Ronnie, let's put this in perspective, and I think everybody's giving Ole Miss a lot of credit, but it speaks to where the two programs are at. I did the Ole Miss locker room afterwards, while my other crew was doing Alabama. I heard from Coach Freeze. I heard from their players. They got beat. Let's be clear on this. They still got beat 33-14, and you sense that they were very satisfied with their effort. Meanwhile, Alabama is number one in the country. This is a team that beat 52-7 last year. 4 previous games were all decided at halftime. In all fairness to Alabama, you expect Ole Miss to be up for them more than Alabama was up for playing Ole Miss. That's no excuse, but it is a fact. Alabama's got bigger fish to fry. Ole Miss, meanwhile, is just trying to win a conference game for the first time in 3 seasons. And they seemed like they were more excited to play the football game and had something to prove.
Oh, no doubt about it, Gary. And all those things you said are true. And I think, again, you could kind of see this coming that Alabama might not play its best game. It's certainly Ole Miss. This was the game of the year for them. There's no question about that. And you have to give them credit. I said that Hugh Freeze, the head coach over there, the new head coach at Ole Miss, had done a great job getting between the ears of the Ole Miss players, getting them to play hard. They played hard, and they played really physical. Let's be honest, Gary. I think they took the game physically to Alabama. They certainly, in a lot of ways, I thought they out-hit Alabama.
All right, let's take a look at the stat sheet, and you'll see some of what we talked about. Only 305 total yards for Alabama. The good news is Ole Miss had 2 long touchdown drives. Outside of that, again, Alabama does an incredible job. Only 218 total yards at the end of the day. You see the rush yards, a concern for Alabama, 125 yards rushing, but they did hold that Ole Miss team that you mentioned was leading the SEC in rushing yards to 80. Passing yards, McCarron with 180. But again, in fairness to McCarron, he didn't have a lot of looks downfield. He did throw 2 more touchdown passes. That's 12 for the season. 20 is the record. And he set the record, Rodney, for most pass attempts without an interception previously held by Brody Coyle.
He's playing very efficiently, obviously, Gary, with no interceptions. Last 5 games, first 5 games this season, 12 touchdown passes, off to a fantastic start. And, he's throwing the ball really well. And not only that, but I think when you look at this wide receiver core that we've talked about, we've kind of raved about in some ways since last spring. I think those guys have really stepped up big, done a great job. You saw 2 fantastic catches by an unbelievable freshman wide receiver, Amari Cooper. The first one was on the left side, and of course the other one in the back of the end zone. Gary, those catches were probably as good as it gets.
3 interceptions for Alabama. The only Alabama turnover actually was a fumble by Robert Lester after he had gotten one of those picks, and the Tide actually dropped another interception, so they continue to give quarterbacks a lot of trouble. Well, still to come tonight on Tider Insider TV, recruiting news. Alabama has received a commitment from one of the nation's top high school running backs, but will he line up in the backfield for the Crimson Tide? We will discuss. Also, Tider Insider TV will be taking your phone calls. The number that you need to call to reach us, as always, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us at titv@wvuatv.com. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. The one and only award-winning Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock, proud bottlers of Pepsi-Cola. And welcome back to Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris. Time to talk recruiting. And last Friday was a big day for Alabama and a big day for Derrick Henry. Let's roll the video from Friday. We'll show you how this entire day unfolded. First, at his school, in front of a jam-packed crowd, he put on the University of Alabama hat, signifying that he is going to sign with the Crimson Tide. And then the 6'4", 240-pound running back from Yulee High School went out and rushed for 363 yards that night on 35 carries and 6 touchdowns as his team beat Glades Day 42-6. Glades Day features Florida commitment Kelvin Taylor, rated by some, including the analyst that night, Tom Luganville, as the #1 running back in the country. And Luganville, who I have a lot of respect for, spent most of that evening trying to tell us why Derrick Henry will not be a running back at the next level. And again, all he did was rush for 363 and 6 touchdowns.
I'm going to give you his 5-game stats here. So if you're at home and you got a pencil, write these things down because it's staggering. Through 5 games, 1,753 yards and 24 touchdowns, averaging 350 yards a game rushing. That's unbelievable.
Now, depending on how you do the stats, either Henry or Taylor are the all-time leading rusher in Florida. Henry is the all-time varsity running total yardage.
Because
leader.
they don't count 8th grade.
And Taylor has more yards because he played in the 8th grade.
Right.
Regardless, I heard Luganville say once during the telecast, well, you've got Henry doing this against high school kids. They can't.
They're all doing it against
high school players. Taylor was as well. Your thoughts, though, on him being a running back at Alabama, or could there be a position?
Well, I tell you who he looks like to me. Put him in that Wildcat, and there he goes. Looks like Cam Newton. You know, running out of that Wildcat. Yeah, I think he can be a running back, Gary. You know, I've talked to a lot of high school coaches down there in Florida, in the Jacksonville area, that have top prospects and that have had an opportunity to see Derrick Henry and what their thoughts are on him. And, you know, they all think that he can be a running back, too. You know, he's a great athlete. You can do different things with him. He doesn't have to just line up at, you know, in the backfield. You can put him at H-back, and I'm not, you know, kind of like Fowler, you move him around a little bit. You know, he's not going to be a fullback by any means, but, you know, certainly he could line up at tailback for you, move him to H-back. You know, defensively, he's never really played that. Talking to Derrick, you know, his passion is running back.
Well, I hope people are watching this video because when you hear 6'4", 6'4", 240, 245 pounds, whatever he may be, you do think of a big bruising back, and he is that. But he's nimble. He has quick feet. He can cut back. He's not a guy that's just looking for somebody to run over. I think that's the misnomer about big backs in this day and age because of so many one-back offenses. We don't see those big bruising backs as much as we used to. But this is a guy who's got some speed, 4.5 speed, too.
Let me tell you, he was clocked electronically. It's under 4.5, actually, 4.42, and also has a 42-inch vertical jump. I mean, he's just as one coach put it to me last night, one high school coach in Jacksonville, he's a freak of an athlete. Wow. That's just what he is. All
right, well, he is the latest commitment for the Crimson Tide. Well, coming up, remember Kareem Jackson? He's finally coming into his own, it seems like, in the NFL with the Houston Texans. Plus, Bama gymnasts received their national championship rings. And don't forget to give us a call here on the program. You can reach us at 205-348-9882, or you can drop us an email at the address there on your screen. We'll be right back with more Tider Insider Television. Rolling along from Tuscaloosa on a Tuesday night. You stay with us. Houston Texans cornerback Kareem Jackson has taken his lumps during his first few years in the NFL, waiting for a chance to have a breakout game. It finally came on Sunday for the former Bama star against the Tennessee Titans. He had 2 tackles, 2 pass deflections, and a pick 6, bringing it back 63 yards as the Texans beat the Titans 38-14. They are 4-0 on the season, and Kareem is really turning it on. We saw what he could do at Alabama. He has the potential to be a great cover corner, and it's starting to happen for him in the NFL. Well, 6 months after the Alabama gymnastics squad was saluted for winning its 6th national championship with a celebration at Coleman Coliseum, an even bigger event was held Saturday night, this one in front of 100,000 fans at Bryant-Denny Stadium. 18 members of the gymnastics team and support staff and coaches received their national championship rings during a ceremony at the halftime of the Tide's football game against Ole Miss. Here you see that beautiful ring. Head coach Sarah Patterson said that because of the tornado tragedy in 2011, that team really didn't get a chance to celebrate the championship. They were like everybody else in Tuscaloosa and Alabama, busy helping put lives back together, cleaning up. But she said this year they got a chance to celebrate, and that's been good.
Well, I think the hardest thing was in 2011, 10 days after we won our championship, the tornado hit. And we never really celebrated it, and rightfully so, because we were working on helping other people in our community and putting everyone's lives back together. So I think it was kind of appropriate that in 2012 we won again.
6 national championships for Coach Patterson, and they'll be one of the favorites to win number 7 coming up next year. All right, let's go to the phones. They're lined up for us, Rod. Let's start off with our buddy John over there in Bessemer. John, what's up?
Gary, what's going on, man? Roll Tide.
I hear you, Bo.
Hey, man, somebody told me that LSU player has come back to LSU. Is that true?
Well, Tyrann Mathieu is enrolled at LSU taking classes. He is not going to play football this year at all. There's a possibility that he could go on to the NFL next spring. And there is I guess, a slight possibility that he could try to come back and play next year at LSU. I really don't know what's going to happen, but we know he's not going to play this year.
Just have to, wait and see what happens on that.
He won't be on the field November 3rd against Alabama. John, we promise you that. All right, let's go over to Rainbow City there in East Alabama and talk with James. James, how you doing?
All right, guys. How you doing? My comment today is basically it looked like Alabama just kind of shut it down in the second half on the offensive side. Ole Miss, they actually outscored us, and our defense was wonderful.
Right.
And my comment on Mr. Rowe, Henry Rowe, that young man, he looks like he's probably going to end up being probably a tight end to me or somebody for short yardage, and he would be great for that.
Well, James, he's a big, strong young man, as we mentioned earlier. Now, as far as the Alabama offense shutting it down, I never liked that term because I don't think anybody tries not to make first downs, tries not to move the football, tries not to score. Having said that, I think your point is we'll taken up 27-7. I think Nick Saban felt like Alabama had enough points to win the game. They didn't want to make mistakes. They didn't want to have turnovers and give Ole Miss a short field. I think the feeling was if they have to earn everything they get, they're not going to win the game. And granted, they did outscore Alabama 7-6, so they did outscore Alabama in the second half, but the game was never in jeopardy. Still, though, Alabama was a little bit conservative on offense.
Yep. That's a good summary. That's, you summed it up completely, Gary. I mean, Alabama was up, and you certainly would not expect at 27-7, a team that's given up, 35 points all year. Really you knew that Alabama's lead was not in jeopardy.
Right.
So you didn't have to do anything offensively to generate more points.
But you're right, James. The defense continues to do a good job, 218 yards. I mean, they're remarkable what is going on defensively at Alabama under Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. All right, let's stay over in East Alabama. Go to center and talk with LD. LD, what's going on, man?
Not much. I was just wondering, with all the rash of injuries, how many of these players are going to be eligible to come back next year?
Well, all of the guys that are out for the year are underclassmen, so they all will be back regardless. Rodney, now, the question about whether or not they get a red shirt this year is in direct correlation to when they got hurt. White and Hart have played too much football. I'm pretty positive.
Well, and both have already been red-shirted.
So, but all those guys are going to be back because they're all underclassmen.
Yeah, Fowler has not been red-shirted. Obviously, Chris Black, who was another player, a true freshman that was injured before the season started, had shoulder injury. He certainly is available to redshirt.
And Jarrett Williams, who's a junior, has not been redshirted. So he could use this as a redshirt.
Yeah,
season.
I think he may be right.
I think he's a third-year junior. So, some red shirts will be looked at depending on their eligibility status, but all those guys will be back next year. That's the good news. All right, we're going to take a timeout. More of your phone calls and emails right here on Insider TV. Stick around, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. Rod, let's get right back to the telephones, and I think we're going to talk to John. Is that right? John in Sawyerville?
Right.
All right, John, what's going on, man?
Hey, I'm trying to find out who was Alabama's second-string quarterback.
Well, it's listed on the depth chart as Philip Ely, John. Blake Sims has played a lot as well when they've gone to two different quarterbacks. So, I guess I'll let Rodney join in. I think the only way to really answer that question, knock on wood, is if something happened to A.J. McCarron as to who would be the next quarterback. Both those guys have played some in mop-up duty, but it would either be Sims or Ely.
And I think it probably would be both, to be honest with you. I think they would alternate. They've kind of done that late in games this year. The Arkansas game, the FAU game, Florida Atlantic, those two games, those two guys alternated possessions. So I think that would possibly be what they would do. And again, so I don't really know that there is, quote unquote, a second team guy, just depending on the situation, how they wanted to do that.
All right, good enough. All right, let's go, or let's stay right here in Tuscaloosa and talk with CB. CB, how you doing? CB, you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead, CB.
My other phone wrong. Look, I know y'all still got the optimism. 5-0 is 5-0, but with our best yet game to come, I think. But what do y'all think about us still going undefeated?
Well, they got a good chance. I mean, like you said, the first goal was to get to this bye week undefeated at 5-0. Now it's a 7-game season. Hopefully an 8th game in the SEC championship game, and then hopefully the national championship game. Yeah, I still think Alabama's capable of beating anybody on their schedule. Having said that, there are teams on that schedule that are capable of beating Alabama.
Yeah, there's a pretty good stretch run coming up here, CB, when you look at it. Obviously, I think it's great that Alabama has a week off. I think they really needed it now. Then you have Missouri on the road up there in Columbia. Then you go to Knoxville. Then you come back, you play Mississippi State. Then you have to go on the road to play LSU, which obviously is going to be a huge game. and then you come back and you have to play Texas A&M, who's playing extremely well. So, you know, those are going to be that's going to be a 5 tough game stretch. So, you know, Gary, it's hard to go undefeated. Last year's team, as good as it was, didn't go undefeated. They lost a game. So, you know, we'll see. But I think they have I think they have a good chance.
Yeah. Todd is in Coleman. Todd, you're on Tider Insider TV. Todd, you with us? All right, Todd's not there. Want to know Hart and White will be back this season? No, my understanding, based on what Coach Saban said yesterday, is these are season-ending injuries.
Yeah, they're out for the year. Both have required knee surgery.
All right, we're going to take another break, and we'll be back with the final segment of Tider Insider TV. Thanks for the phone calls. Stick around. We've got more to do here on the program. We're back up. Welcome back, everybody. I know you've probably noticed already these beautiful shirts Rodney and I have on. Original elephant wear from the Locker Room, located on the University Strip. And we love these shirts. The Locker Room has been a Tuscaloosa tradition for 48 years and is the home of original elephant wear. You can either drop by the store or check them out on the internet at www.locker-room.biz. Rodney, we're going to go by this week and get us some more.
Yeah, several more, I hope.
Yeah, shirts, ties, pants, shorts, pullovers. They've got all that original elephant wear at the Locker Room. You pay them a visit. Some sad news before we finish up on the program. Yesterday, Billy Varner, longtime driver, confidant, and unofficial bodyguard of Coach Bryant, passed away. He was 76 years old. He was a man that Coach Bryant trusted 100%. He had plenty of opportunities to write a book, never would. And I talked to some people that knew him. They said he was a class act and a great individual. Condolences to the family, and may he rest in peace. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's program. It's dinner time, Rod. Heading over to Buddy's Rib and Steak in Northport. Why don't you meet us over there for a big filet or some barbecue, a hamburger, whatever's on your mind, about 7:15. We will see you there. Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your evening. Roll Tide, everybody.